Welcome, folks. So we're in the second half of Doom 2 now, and I'm sorry for not doing a video for a while. I was having problems with my mouse, I had to buy a new mouse, etc., other problems, but here we are again in the second half of Doom 2. This is map 16, The Suburbs by Sandy Peterson. One or two interesting facts about this map. One is that apparently two of the buildings in this map are based off of, one is based off of Sandy Peterson's parents' house, and one is based off of his house, apparently. I'm not sure about this first building. It looks like, it just looks like a building, but there's a building right next to it that looks like a house that is probably either one of those. The second fact is that this map is notoriously difficult from pistol start, because if you wake up that arch file, there aren't really any sort of weapons around you. You sort of have to run around. Unfortunately, or fortunately for me, that's not really an issue. But yeah, that's like, it's kind of weird to have an arch file just like right there. That shows that maybe, you know, you're in the second half of Doom 2 now. Unfortunately, I would not say that this map is that great outside of that. There are some people in recent years who have called this map, like, you know, actually good, because it kind of resembles... There's one part of it. Really, you have to be generous to say that it resembles a Slaughter map. So that's what a lot of people say. It's like, oh, it was the first Slaughter map. I think that's really stretching it. So Slaughter maps are like what they sound like, basically maps that give you huge amounts of ammo and let you kill huge amounts of guys, and you know, there's lots of monster infighting. It's exciting because you're using large amounts of, you know, weapons to kill lots of guys. It's usually in wide open spaces, and there is one encounter in this map that fits that description, and it's the only encounter, at least it's the first encounter like that in Doom 2. This is the house-like building that I was talking about. Other than that, I would say this map does not really feel like it's in the suburbs at all. It's a pretty weak setting, and overall I'd say a pretty weak map. Outside of that, like, one encounter that I was talking about. But Slaughter maps in, I don't know, ever since like 2000 or so have become more of a trend. They're more of something characteristics of modern Doom maps, and I think it kind of responds to the fact that players, after a certain point, they get bored of the same old kind of tricky maps and tight corridors. They want to, making bigger spaces becomes possible because of the Boom engine and Z-Doom, etc., and computers become faster. So they want to make bigger, wide open, more detailed spaces. So there are a lot of maps that kind of fall in that description. It's pretty arbitrary what is considered a Slaughter map or not, because I say just in general, contemporary Doom map sets are way more difficult than Doom 2, which is, I think, oftentimes their downfall, because in my view, it's kind of a lot of them don't really value your time at all. And are just the same types of encounters over and over again. It depends on, you know, what map set you're talking about. I'm supposed to, like, here I'm supposed to unlock a secret to shoot that, like, I guess you could call it witch switch, but I just did it by falling off that platform. You don't need to actually activate this other wood panel thing here. But that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to get on top of the one that I'm hitting to go down. I keep thinking there's a switch on the corner, but there's nothing there. Yeah, it's funny, I didn't really look up how to get any of the secrets in this map, and I ended up getting them all. So I guess in the future I'm not even going to bother trying to look up and get all the secrets, because I have about the same amount of luck anyway. The next map, I guess I get 2 out of the 3 secrets, and then the next map I get 3 out of the 4, so it's about the same, and I'm not running around, you know, trying to get secrets. But yeah, I have a lot of criticisms of slaughter maps. Like I said, it depends. It really depends on like what set you're talking about. But I think that this map sort of being resurrected as a slaughter map. Oh yeah, you have to hit the torch. Okay. I think that this map sort of being resurrected as a slaughter map is kind of, I don't know. I don't know if that really, if it really qualifies. This map is really big and empty. It was my least favorite map in Doom when I first played through it, and I think it's just because it doesn't really have a sense of identity outside of like, you know, those buildings, and that one encounter that's good. I also like the exit area, but it has nothing to do with the rest of the map. This map, like, something like downtown, it might not be as like, it's like, this is a map where you can sort of run around and you're not, you know, in tight square corridors, so it has that advantage over, you know, downtown. But it's not really a setting that has any particular character. It just feels like kind of a vague space. It's very abstract. It doesn't feel like a lot of work was put into the detail of a lot of parts of this map. It just feels kind of like scraps. Like I said, that one encounter is probably the main like saving grace of this map. I also like the exit area, but it's, you know, really short. So overall, I didn't end up hating this map as much as I did on, you know, when I first played through Doom 2, but I wouldn't say that it's great either. I think it's pretty blah, I guess. And I think I've said this, but maps like 15 through 20, the second half, or vaguely the second half of the city maps, that's my favorite stretch of Doom 2, and this is the only map. This is kind of the odd one out that I don't like from that whole stretch. So the next 2 maps I really like, and, you know, the Industrial Zone is one of my favorite Doom 2 maps, so at the very least, this is one of, you know, this is within a stretch of maps that are much stronger than it, so it doesn't last for very long. Yeah, I guess I could also say that, like, this is one that's a little bit open-ended. I didn't need to go to that area. I'm actually supposed to go and get the blue key first. That's where the big encounter is, and that's really the one big event that happens on this map, other than, you know, the initial struggle to kind of get out of that house. And then the rest of the areas are either optional or, you know, I have to go there later. This is an optional secret area. It's a nice little secret though, walking into the guts. The way that you can tell that you can walk into there is it wakes up like a cacodemon, and they probably start shooting at you. So that's how you know that there's something behind there. It's an invisible wall. I kind of like invisible wall secrets, to be honest. I don't know why. There's just something about them that I like. So yeah, I guess this is kind of a cool area. It doesn't really fit with the rest of the map, but I pretty much am saying that about this entire map. It's just random places. Let's read the description on the Doom World April Agitation thread by Linguisa. Oh, here's the blue key area. It doesn't really look like much. The blue key is up on that that like wooden perch in the corner of the map. So it's really easy to find. And yeah, there are some like caches of ammo and stuff. First you have to deal with these guys, I guess. But the real torrent of guys comes once you pick up that blue key. Which, like I said, it works within the context of Doom 2 because it's unexpected, because you're kind of like, okay, what is this map? Like, and then, you know, a billion monsters come out, and that's kind of a cool way to make this map worthwhile, I would say. Yeah, here we go. while I'm fighting a huge torrent of monsters here, it's a good place to use a BFG. They also give you an invulnerability sphere like they do in most Doom 2 maps that have kind of a slaughter-like setting. I'm going to pick it up just because, you know, it's in the map, why not? It makes it easier too, and it's fun to kill monsters regardless. Plus I have all this BFG ammo. Okay, this is from Linguisa. Suburbs is one of those maps with a pretty inexplicable name. I've seen Suburbs, and you, map 15, are no suburb. That said, I have often wondered about the building right near the beginning. It's totally a house, and the 20 imp room adjacent to it is a garage. That's the room that I started in. I would love to see the floor plan where Sandy Peterson was living at the time and see if there was any inspiration there. That's what Linguisa says. And then he talks about the trap that I'm currently in right now. Yeah. And that's about it. I don't know, this map is inexplicably popular again. I don't think it's a particularly good map, especially if you compare it to what is before and after map 15 and map 17. I'm not counting the secret maps. There's so much more, I mean, you'll see, there's so much more sort of density of ideas and stuff going on in like map 17. I guess people, in a more modern sense, like the idea that they can just kind of wander around and fight monsters, and it's kind of a looser design. So I guess that's one thing that you could say for this map, maybe some of the other Sandy Peterson maps, but especially this map, whereas the John Romero map, it's like very tightly sort of plotted different areas, almost puzzly in a very kind of, you know, little subtle way, not really like intensely puzzly. But I just think I think that the Romero maps are just, it's obvious that like so much more work was put into them. There are some neat secrets in this map, I guess, like obviously that like big slab of what is called fire blue, the thing that kills Twitch streams. If you ever try and Twitch stream a Doom map, and you run across like fire blue, it screws up the quality of the video, because for some reason like the, you know, compression algorithm or something just can't deal with it, which is funny. Fire blue is also like pretty renowned for being a terrible texture. I kind of like it. It is very out of place here, and sometimes Sandy Peterson will just put things that are out of place for no reason and they'll just be there, which is kind of, I guess you could say, like, kind of interesting, but yeah, here it's a little bit more thoughtful. It sends you to a secret. So the two places that are very hell themed at least have, or the two little parts that are very hell themed at least have like little secrets in them, which is nice. I like this area because I like that weird black concrete texture. I think it was supposed to be based off the building that id Software was in at this time. That was like a big black office building in Dallas. I don't know, I can't, somebody found it on Street View, but something completely different is there now. I think it's like an insurance building or something. I'm not sure how long id Software was there. I know they're still based in Texas though. That was like, before I knew anything about like software companies, I thought that all of them were just based in like Dallas and Texas, because I couldn't figure out why specifically Texas. I guess it sort of makes sense in that like, you know, like having property even then in like Silicon Valley or something like that would be more expensive, or LA, and you know, they were also in Louisiana and Texas was like nearby, but then also they were like based in Wisconsin for like 6 months or something. I don't really know why they moved to all those different locations. I guess I'll have to read Masters of Doom again. But there you see I got 100 on everything, in spite of the fact that I haven't played this map in forever, and I didn't look up any of the secrets, which was kind of neat. Okay, so here's the tenements. I actually really like this opening. It's very spooky and it doesn't really tell you what this map is. It doesn't really represent the rest of this map very well. You would think it has this kind of like weird auditorium vibe to it. And this makes me think of Doom 1 Episode 1. It's like kind of a callback in a way with all these like nuked textures, but the fact that it's like wide open, you can't see any enemies right from the start, makes it interesting. I don't really think, yeah, this map is really just like one weird encounter after another. This one is a big one. That area that you wander into, it just like kind of calls you into that area, but because it looks so strange, there's this like little stairway down into this place where the key is. You can immediately see the key, so it's obviously drawing you down there, but then it traps you in there. I knew to teleport out because there are teleporters on the corner, and that's how you get out of the room, but they're not easy to see, so the person playing it the first time will either stumble around just hoping to find something, or they'll be stuck in there, and it's a pretty scary encounter because it's really easy to fall in the pit, and you have cacodemons shooting at you, you have chain gunners shooting at you. It's probably it's the meanest encounter in this map. It also just feels like kind of on the side of everything else. Like, it's like this very stable kind of metal structure is breaking down. Like, there's a cave area on the side. There's a lot of actually Duke Nukem 3D maps that remind me of that, where they have like a structure and then it's kind of like debris, or you know, it breaks down into like a giant cave. I always like that sort of interesting crumbling building kind of setting where you have, you know, two different kinds of environments going up against each other. That's really the only area of this map that I would say that does that. The rest of it feels pretty controlled, but it's still a neat sort of juxtaposition. It's a neat beginning area, but I think the problem with this map, and the reason you can see I have a little secret. I'm on the other side of like the cage where where right at the beginning where the imps were shooting at me from. I think the problem with this map is the encounters are very separate. It's very linear. It's very like hub spoke, which is the term that I don't know who came up with the term, but it's the term that Tarnsman on Doom World uses a lot, of like referring to. I talked about it with the tricks and traps, but yeah, it's basically everything extending out from a hub where you go in one door and then you go in another door, etc. I think if all the pieces of this map were like sort of taken and spread out a little bit more, it would be a little bit more like some of the other Romero maps. I guess that's why it's called the Tenements, though. But it's one of those things where the names of the maps don't really seem to like. It's obvious that they came after. I can sort of see the feeling that you're like inside a city and you're kind of going from one area to another, even if it's not like a building. Like, I guess this is like a courtyard that is flooded with nuclear waste or something. I don't know. You really have to use your imagination, I guess. Yeah, I would say like all of these encounters, while they're pretty separate, are kind of interesting. This area is a little bit interesting. It's a little bit puzzly. I guess this is a lesson in like how to make a map that doesn't seem like much, because it really, you're just going down a hallway and then turning, and there's two branches of the hallway, and the key is at the end of one of them. But the way that everything unlocks, the way that each kind of piece of the map sort of unlocks in spite of its very like kind of square layout, is interesting. I think the interesting thing about this map, and the fact that it's kind of like an odd one out, has to do with the fact that oftentimes Romero uses open spaces more, like you know, you're wandering around in more of a kind of like, I guess Circle of Death is the best example of that. So things being very square and separate from each other is kind of different. But the way that you sort of end up going back through secrets and doubling back through things kind of breaks down that feeling of the map, and actually a lot of areas are connected to each other even though they don't seem to be at first. So that's an interesting, like, it's like communicating something, I guess you could say. Here's another, I guess I was wrong. Here's another instance of feeling like maybe it was built on top of a cave or something like that. That little ash wall there. It's a really small little section here, but it gives you the kind of idea that this map is based off. You know, this map is like a bigger building that's built on top of, you know, these caves. And the way to unlock the pathway to you can see, like, okay, Cacodemons come out, and then there's this chain gunner. Just every piece of the, like, sort of puzzle that you unlock creates a different encounter. It's not really a puzzle, but you know what I mean. Every piece of the map that you unlock. And then to unlock the next sort of walkway to get to the key, you have to fall into this little pit, you know, which in many other areas, if you fall into a pit, you're just screwed, or, you know, there's no purpose there. But I guess this map sort of sets your expectations, because you have to fall into the pit to go further. This the way that he uses the bars here, and that sort of like castle like I don't know, detailing, is something that he would come back to in his maps for his 2 maps for Doom 1 Episode 4 that were made after this. That like really feels like it hints at that style of map. And it kind of goes into Quake, honestly, because there's a lot of like castle maps in Quake. Let's read what Linguisa says about the tenements. Okay, yeah, here's the little area that you have to fall down into to unlock the next part. That's kind of a neat, because I mean, your instinct is to just run over it. It might be a trap, but given that the rest of this area is running into pits to unlock things, it kind of makes sense that you need to do that. Okay, this is Linguisa. Tenements is, in my opinion, an underrated Romero map, and I can't figure out why. It has all the usual Romero hallmarks. Plenty of flow with the player looping back through areas, recognizable landmarks, ample secrets, and more. So why is it seated all the way down at 8? Okay, so the whole April agitation thing was where, you know, they voted on maps in like a, you know, like a March Madness kind of setup. This is one of the other separate areas, by the way, of the map. It's probably my least favorite, but it is interesting in that the key is just like right in front of me here on the other side of this wall, and there's a whole nother area that's not required to go to, that you can just kind of go to if you want to. Okay. Perhaps it's ultimately too linear. Tenants is actually the longest level in the entire game for UV speedrunners, although it really only means that it requires a whole 2 minutes to beat. Maybe it subconsciously reminds players of Episode 1 mission, or Map 9, which is often considered Romero's weakest level. I skipped that level when I was playing through Doom 1 for these videos, because I really don't like it. I think this map is way better than that. Tenement shares the basic structure of a central square hub with connection in the cardinal direction to other areas. It's still supremely competent, though, and shows that even a middle-of-the-road Romero level can still be on par with the best efforts of others. Yeah, I guess I would say that. I mean, I still think this is a good map. Even if the concept of this map is less interesting, it's just one area after another. The actual execution is what makes it work as a map, and it's not something that I would call like the most memorable map. Outside of that beginning area, which I do think is actually is quite memorable, And arguably the exit of this map is slightly memorable for other reasons that I'll get into. But here's the little cave area. I just have to jump down through here. But you have to jump into a pit again. So I guess that's the theme of this map, is jumping into a pit. But that arachnotron is there, and that's pretty scary. But that cave goes all through, you know, there are other areas that connect up to the map, and there's one secret that I missed there that don't remember how to unlock. Yeah, I feel like it's kind of an insult to this map to call it middle of the road. I think it's pretty good. I think it's one of those cases, looking through all of these Doom maps, I really think that, you know, I'm much more fascinated by a lot of the you know, user Doom WADs more so than I am by the original maps, in a sense, because these maps are generally pretty well executed, even when they're not, you know, in comparison to some user maps. But also there's just so much more unpredictability when you're talking about random people who are doing it for, you know, just because they want to make a map. And that makes it a little more exciting to talk about, whereas one John Romero map, kind of, there's a lot of the same traits as another, and you kind of know what you're getting, even though he does try and mix it up a lot. But it's the same kind of language or whatever. And I also just don't really need to like go over this in one way, because so many people have like broken down Doom maps over the years, and I almost don't like the idea that like, oh, this is, you know, this is the masterminds at id at work or something. Like, I do think these are really good maps, but I don't think that, you know, it's the nature of John Romero's personality, or, you know, the fact that he's a well-known figure magically means that he knows how to make a good map. Because there's a lot of people who work in AAA, who work in the game industry, who they don't know how to design maps. They don't know how to do game design, really. Like, they don't understand how to make things interesting. Things are so broken apart into pieces and parts that sort of general sense of like, you know, someone like Romero has to be a little bit more of a generalist because he's doing programming for the game, but he's also doing map design. You know, he's implementing some things with the weapons. And, you know, his maps, like, he does everything in the map. He does all the texturing, he does all the detailing. So he has to put work into all of that, and it's actually a pretty difficult skill. Like, it's one of those things, I say this with Wolfenstein maps a lot because it's really the most sort of concrete example of this, but it's not that hard to make a Doom map. It's harder to make a Doom map than it is to make a Wolfenstein 3D map, obviously. But like with Wolfenstein 3D, it's hard to make a good map. It's hard to make an interesting map because you are limited in some ways. And there are a lot of Doom maps that just kind of rely on the same things. Like, they often rely on the same hitting the notes of like, you know, this is a wide open area with a bunch of monsters. Here you can see my health bonus get totally eaten away because I handled this horribly. I could have just used the BFG there and gotten out of that situation, but I didn't. But it does expose a clever little secret here with our favorite buddy, the Pain Elemental, the worst enemy in Doom. If you notice, those ledges are just slightly far away from you, so you have to run to them, and if you just walk into them, you'll probably just fall, which is a interesting little step, or the interesting little setup. It's kind of one of those things where like the map isn't quite holding your hand anymore. Like, it's requiring you to take a few more leaps. Because we're in map 17 now, we're in the second half of the game. You know, the difficulty is progressing, so that means the environment is also a little bit more hostile to you. You have to jump over those gaps now. that's kind of interesting. Although I got this nice little secret here. I think I got it from unlocking that area with the pain elemental. But yeah, I think it is kind of boring to talk about like someone like John Romero as like a mastermind. I think there are a lot of ways that you can say that these maps are interesting, but it can kind of be preaching to the choir sometimes, because the kind of people who are interested in Doom already are kind of self-selecting, and the people who are, you know, not interested in that are probably not going to seek it out, like an entire commentary of me talking about all of Doom 2. And I guess that's the kind of monotonous element, because everybody, not everybody, but like a large percentage of people who are liable to watch this or something already know the levels in Doom 2 and want to hear some like observations about it, or, you know, whatever. By the way, it's interesting to point out how here it's sort of a parallel situation to that one area where there was the central hallway and then there were two little branches. That is again true here, whereas in the other area, there were two branches, and then the central hallway is where you had to get in to get the key. So that's like a little theme and variation there. Okay, I like this area. It's really stupid. It's you know, this is something that if people put it in their maps, like it would be considered a characteristic of, like, you know, an amateur map to just run to the end of each hallway to unlock the next hallway. There's not really any signposts to telling. You can hear like doors open, but I like it at the end of this map because it's completely unrelated, yet somehow feels like oddly climactic. And the fact that this map seems like it's built on top of a cave means that the idea that you're unlocking things further and further inside, it feels oddly appropriate for this to be the exit of the map. So I like this little area at the end. It's distinctive. But yeah, I don't know. There's an element of talking about this that feels kind of like preaching to the choir that can be kind of boring. And that's why I do like talking about, you know, amateur maps. But, you know, there's still a lot to talk about with Doom 2, and there's a lot that people forget, even with stuff that is well known. And I think that's what I like about it. Okay, so you probably hear... I think I have a slightly older version of Doom 2. I'm imagining that this bug was fixed, but I think some of those bugs weren't even fixed in 1.9. But it's a hilarious sound. I don't know why it keeps activating the switch, but there's a lot of weird bugs in this map. There's one bug, like very obvious, like game-breaking bug that I can only imagine was fixed later on in this map. And I think there's one other one too. Oh yeah, there's one where like a lift activates and it goes down, and like the ammo box just stays in midair. The ammo box that was on the lift just kind of stays in midair. But yeah, I actually like this map. I think I like it quite a bit. I think this is one of Sandy Peterson's best maps. It feels like a map from episode 3 of Doom 1, which is maybe why I like it. But it also has that like, so it has that kind of like creepy sensibility of like you're unlocking stuff that I think Doom 1 has. I don't think the Doom 2 levels are necessarily as creepy. Or when they are, they feel kind of gimmicky. But this also, I don't understand. I guess maybe the game gives you so much ammunition, but this is like intentionally designed to be kind of a slaughter type area. Maybe people don't like that you have so many invulnerability spheres in this map, but I'm surprised that the people who like slaughter maps don't come to this map, because this really is like designed very intentionally for all these guys to filter out into this main courtyard, and that's what I really like about it. It's a nice area, and the weird armor and health bonuses are great. The fact that like the keys are all in really weird places. Like you saw me pick up the yellow key. It's literally just in the corner of like this area. you just walk into the corner and pick it up, there's nothing there. Okay, you can see this awful trap here. It's very, very easy to just die instantaneously, especially if you haven't killed other monsters there. That's what the invulnerability sphere is for, too. I think, by the way, that nukage pit is just kills you instantly. This is filled with like weird Sandy Peterson buggy things that are just kind of beautiful in my mind. There's kind of these bonus areas that feel like some of them mean something and some of them don't. Some of them are just kind of random. There's the random health bonuses everywhere. It's weirdly buggy. There's some really bizarrely mean traps that you wouldn't expect. There's just so... Oh, and the keys being hidden in the weirdest places is my favorite part of the map. It just makes it feel so unique, like it has its own character. Let's see what Linguisa says. See, well, okay, and this is what I like about this map too, is it feels intentionally designed. Like that area in the suburbs with the ambush with the key, it was a nice little surprise ambush that you didn't expect for sure, but this just seems so designed intentionally around this, like the fact that you're going to fight a lot of guys here. Maybe that makes it a little more boring in that you already expect it, but I don't know, I like it. Okay. The courtyard finds us at the tail end of Sandy Peterson's outdoor expedition, and in a cunning inversion of the status quo. Downtown had provided us with a box which ideas were placed themselves in smaller boxes, and this map is a box from which ideas branch outward into the void. At the same time, the courtyard plays central to the gameplay in the level, featuring the game's second so-called slaughter encounter after the Suburbs blue key pickup. Highlights include the somewhat humorous key placement and what I assume is a shower cubicle in the glorious skin-low outhouse that overlooks the city skyline. We're going to go to that area. Yeah, I think, oh, you just probably saw the bug, or you're about to see this weird bug that I presume was fixed in a different version. But yeah, like the texture is just missing on the side of the wall here. Or it's like some kind of weird rendering error, but I have a feeling it was just the texture missing. Then again, I don't know, because you'd probably get the Hollow Mirrors error, but I don't think Hollow... No, that's not true. Yeah, I don't know what the problem with that little area is, but this ambush is obviously much easier when I have the BFG and invulnerability. Yeah, I pretty much can go through here and you're done with the map once you go into this area. There's all these cacodemons. It's nice to have the invulnerability here. It really helps. He really gives this invulnerability out pretty easily, but and it's kind of like a way to, I don't know, maybe it's a little bit silly in that like it's a way to sort of mask that the encounters are a little too difficult, but I think it's still fun. I think it's designed to be fun. I love that you pick up the key in a health bonus there, just in this like floor of health bonuses. It's so bizarre. I don't know. Even for a relatively boxy side area, it just feels like it has its own little surreal character. That's why I'm kind of surprised. Maybe this map is just slightly too weird to like catch on as being reevaluated, you know, for being like the first slaughter map or whatever. I have a feeling like this might have even been designed before the Suburbs because it feels kind of like a Doom 1 map, but I could be wrong. It's hard to know those sorts of things. So it's just weird that the Suburbs is considered like the first slaughter map when, you know, this seems much more intentionally designed that way. Plus, like, the texturing is better, the theme... There's that ammo box in the in midair. The texture is better, the theming of the map is better. I don't know. It's just so much stuff that's better. Yeah, and that was a very nice telefrag there. This is a nice little secret. It's good whenever they put you sort of above and a little secret, and then you drop down back to the central area. I think I missed one secret. I'm not sure exactly what I missed. I missed whatever leads you to get the computer map of the level, because I'll see it on a ledge later, and I've gotten it before, so I think I just forgot. These side areas feel kind of meandering and like whatever. Like this reminds me of spawning, or not spawning vats. Halls of Despair, Halls of the Damned, that little, it just kind of like a random room with this texture that doesn't really accomplish anything. It's there, it's not the worst thing. I mean, this map really relies on the fact that the opening area, the theme of it is just really strong. So the fact that I guess this is like a good game design principle in general. Like, if you're going to keep returning to an area, that it should be the most interesting area in the map. And that is definitely true of this map. You might not spend as much time in these little side rooms, so they maybe don't have to be as interesting as the central area that you have to keep returning to. I think Sandy Peterson does that, you know, from time to time, where it's like, I can think of episode 2, map 5, I guess it's called Command Center, where like the central area at the beginning, the central first few rooms are interesting, and then some of the side rooms are just kind of boring, but you don't really spend time in them anyway, so they kind of look like they're just designed to be side rooms. Whereas this looks like it's, you know, preparing you for a battle. It's just, it's nice, it's wide open, like the little beginning goes into this area without even using a door. It's a little more elegant than you would expect for Sandy Peterson. Here's another just room. This area, it traps you in here, as you can see, and then you have to go through this whole rigmarole maze here, kind of reminiscent of the maze in Inferno, Doom, episode 3, map 7. You would think that those rocks are damaging because they are damaging on other maps, but here it's fine. It's weird because anytime you see an animated texture on the floor, the kind of assumption would be that it is damaging, but I guess Sandy Peterson was like, I'm not going to make this damaging because it would be too hard then. Which, okay, whatever. It just feels silly that even is like that. Then there's not much to say. Like, this does feel like something from Inferno. You unlock these little blue things, and it just unlocks this like other area, and you go back through, and you just exit through the other side of the room that you got locked off in, and it opens back up the area that you got locked off in. So this is kind of just like a little trap. You don't need to go here at all. I think the only advantage to going here is getting that one secret. I feel like you might access that secret from somewhere else anyway, but I'm not entirely sure. God, I can't remember. Yeah, that's the secret that I'm talking about. That ledge. And now you're trapped off here. So that's a little theme. The Dungeons and Dragons design coming back, the tricks and traps type design. I think like, yeah, but it's in the service at least of a map that where the theme and the central area is much more interesting and distinctive. I think this comes up with his next map, you know, which I'll talk about whenever I get to that video. But I also really like the Citadel, his next map, and I think it is another one of those things where maybe some side areas are boring, but there's some central parts or themes of the map overall that work well and make the map kind of work as a concept, even if it's like the details aren't as there. You know, and we can see in the Romero map like the details that each little encounter is kind of interesting, but in here it's more about the the overall kind of experience and the overall kind of area, and some of the details are weaker. But I guess that's a result of making a billion maps. I have a feeling he's one of those designers, you know, he's one of those people who like makes a bunch of maps, and some of them are interesting and some of them are not, and like, you know, you have to sort of have quality control and go back through them and see if like you know, filter through what's actually interesting or not. Like, he doesn't have maybe a good sense of which one of his own maps is interesting. I feel like you can get on those columns. Maybe I'm missing something though. I can't remember. I thought that you could get on them. Maybe that's not true. But maybe that's where the secret lies. Who knows? You can probably just look it up online. You can look up somebody 100%ing this map, and then that whole question will be answered. Anyway, we're about to exit. I think this uses some of the better textures in Doom as well. Like, I think the wood textures are pretty good. The green marble is like one of my favorite textures, and with the vines as well. I like that this map is one of those things where you just kind of start at the beginning. You start in a room that you exit at. Like, the start is the exit, and I love that the exit is just a pit of water. Like, okay. This just has every trait, like random weird trait of like a Sandy Peterson map that makes it good. And it's done in a way that's kind of interesting. So yeah, that's the courtyard. We'll see when the next maps the next videos I do are. I've been kind of slower about this. I think it's like, I just worry that I'm repeating myself, or that it can get kind of boring and samey to talk about the same mappers and the same traits over and over again. I definitely check out, or ask you to check out the Doom mixtape videos that I did a while ago, because those get into more different kinds of things. But yeah, I guess I will see you guys later, and I hope you enjoyed this video.